Welcome to Revenge with Lyra.
At Christmas dinner, Mom didn't toast or smile. She didn't even pass the mashed potatoes. Instead, she leaned across the table, her voice sharp enough to slice the silence. "You're a freeloader. You can't stay after November bills." The room froze. Forks hovered midair. My brother smirked into his glass. My sister fiddled with her phone, pretending not to hear. I sat there, heart pounding, but my face stayed calm. I had given her everything. My paycheck chipped in for groceries, my weekends fixing the broken dryer, my nights babysitting her golden daughter's kids for free. And still, I was disposable. I swallowed, set down my fork, and said nothing. That night, I packed my bags. Every shirt, every book, every trace of me that lived under her roof went into boxes. And while I packed, I made a different list: the bills. Internet, utilities, credit cards. Every account that still carried my name, every payment that auto-drafted from my bank. By 2 a.m., I cut them off, line by line. With one click, her safety net disappeared. My name is Marissa Cole. I'm 26 years old. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when the person you called a freeloader turns out to be the one holding the bills? The next morning, as I poured coffee in my new apartment, my phone buzzed with a fury of missed calls. Then came the pounding on my door. When I opened it, there she was, Mom, red-faced, screaming so loud the neighbors peeked through their blinds. "What did you do, Marissa?" she shrieked. "The lights are out. The water's gone. You think this is funny?" I sipped my coffee, calm, and finally smiled. "No, Mom," I said softly. "But it is fair." To be continued. Mom's fist slammed against my door again and again, her voice cracking under the weight of fury. "You think you can just walk out? You think you can cut us off like that? We're family, Marissa." I let her rant until her voice turned hoarse. Then I set down my mug, opened the door just enough for her to see my face, and said evenly, "Family doesn't call their daughter a freeloader in front of a table full of people. Family doesn't throw you out like trash." Her eyes widened, just for a second, before narrowing again. "I didn't mean it like that. It was just a moment. A moment you've repeated for years." I cut in. "Do you know how many Novembers I carried your bills without saying a word? How many Decembers I put gifts under a tree you couldn't afford? You wanted me gone, so I left. And with me, so did the payments you depended on." Behind her, the neighbor across the hall poked his head out, raising an eyebrow at the spectacle. Mom noticed, cheeks burning red. For the first time in my life, she looked embarrassed. "Turn them back on," she hissed. "Do it now. The kids are freezing. Your brother can't work without internet. You're punishing all of us." I folded my arms. "Not punishment. Responsibility. Try paying a bill in your own name for once." Her jaw trembled. For years, she had held the power with insults, with guilt, with shame. But now, I had flipped the switch. Literally. I closed the door in her face and let the silence settle. On the other side, her voice broke into a scream. "You'll regret this, Marissa?" But deep down, we both knew this time she would. To be continued. By the end of the week, the fallout was impossible to ignore. Aunt Linda texted me first. "What's going on?" "Your mom says the lights and water got cut. She looks awful." Then a cousin messaged, "Your brother's been crashing at a friend's place. He says you abandoned them." Is that true? Abandoned? The word stung, until I remembered Christmas dinner, Mom's smug voice calling me a freeloader while everyone else laughed into their glasses. If anyone had abandoned family, it was them. Meanwhile, Mom's voicemails grew more desperate. "Marissa, we need you. Your sister's kids are crying without heat. Don't do this to us, please. I'll pay you back next month." Finally, her voice raw and angry. "Fine. You think you're better than us? Go ahead. But don't come crawling back when you're alone." Alone. That was the part she never understood. I had been alone, even while living under her roof. Alone at birthdays no one remembered. Alone carrying bills I never got credit for. One night, I logged into the online accounts just to see the chaos. The balances were red, overdue notices flashing across the screen. Every single one of them had my name removed. Every bill now screamed responsibility. Theirs, not mine. For years, I had carried them quietly. Now, the silence of my absence was louder than all their insults combined. As I closed my laptop, my phone buzzed again. A message from Dad this time. "We're talking to a lawyer. Don't think you can get away with this." I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself, because for the first time, I wasn't the one who needed saving. They were. To be continued. The lawyer threat came quicker than I expected. 2 days later, Mom left a voicemail, her voice shaky but trying to sound triumphant. "Marissa, you're in trouble now. We've spoken to someone. You can't just walk away from your obligations. You'll be hearing from us." I almost laughed. Obligations? My name had been the one on those accounts, my paycheck the one covering their comfort. I hadn't signed contracts for them. I had simply paid out of loyalty. Loyalty they mistook for servitude. Still, I decided to be proactive. I called my own attorney, a calm woman named Jenkins who had already guided me through removing my name from everything. When I explained the threat, she chuckled softly. "Marissa, they don't have a case. You were never legally obligated to pay their bills. If they push this, they'll only embarrass themselves." Her reassurance was a balm. For once, the law wasn't another weight against me. It was protection. That night, I typed out a single email to Mom and Dad. Attached were the confirmation letters, utilities, internet, credit cards, all officially transferred out of my name. Every overdue balance stamped clearly with their responsibility. The subject line read, "Not my burden anymore." Within minutes, my phone rang. I didn't answer. I imagined them at the kitchen table, faces pale, realizing there was no safety net waiting to catch them. For years, I had been their invisible lifeline. But now the cord was cut. As I shut down my laptop, I whispered to myself, "I'm not your freeloader. I was your provider. And now you get to live without me." And for the first time, I slept peacefully, no guilt, no weight, no chains. To be continued. By the next week, the whispers had started. A cousin called, her voice low like she was sharing a secret. "Marissa, your mom showed up at Grandma's looking for help. She said the power's off again. The bills are stacked high. People are starting to ask questions." I pictured it, Mom, the woman who had called me a freeloader at Christmas dinner, now sitting in front of relatives, begging for scraps. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then came the text from old family friends. "Is it true your parents can't keep up with their bills?" Another. "Funny, they always bragged about your brother's success. Guess that was exaggerated." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The story was writing itself without me. Meanwhile, Mom's tone shifted again. Another voicemail, softer this time, pleading. "Marissa, this isn't who you are. You've always been the strong one. Please just help us until we get back on our feet. You know your sister can't manage the kids, and your brother's business is struggling. Don't abandon us." I pressed play again just to hear the desperation in her voice. For years, they had mocked me, the average one, the helper, the freeloader. Now, they couldn't survive without the person they dismissed. At work, I caught myself smiling more. My coworkers noticed. "You look lighter," one said. And she was right. Carrying them had been a weight I didn't even realize until I finally dropped it. That night, I stood on my balcony, city lights glowing beneath me, and whispered into the cold air. Let them taste the silence. Let them live with the emptiness they gave me. And I knew their unraveling had only just begun. To be continued. By mid-January, the collapse was public. Mom's friends had stopped inviting her to brunch. Dad's so-called golfing buddies whispered behind his back. And my brother, the one they called the future of the family, was spotted borrowing money from coworkers just to keep gas in his car. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't send proof, didn't make calls. Their downfall came from the very silence they once forced on me. Then, one evening, a letter arrived at my apartment. Handwritten. My mother's cursive slanted and shaky. "Marissa, we're sorry. We were wrong. We never should have said those things at Christmas. We didn't realize how much you carried until it was gone. Please, if there's anything left in your heart for us, help. I held the paper in my hands, waiting for the guilt to wash over me. But instead, there was calm. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and drafted a reply. No venom. No insults. Just clarity. Mom, Dad, this is the life you chose when you called me a freeloader. You wanted me gone. Now you see what life looks like without me. I won't fund your bills, but I hope you learn from this. My silence is not cruelty. It's the boundary I should have set years ago. I never hit send. They didn't deserve even that. Instead, I slipped the letter into my drawer and went back to cooking dinner for myself. The sizzle of garlic in the pan, the hum of my own lights, the warmth of my own heat, paid for, provided, protected by me alone. For the first time, I tasted peace. And it was far richer than any holiday feast they ever mocked me through. To be continued, February brought the final unraveling. Word had spread far enough that even distant relatives reached out. An aunt messaged me, "Your parents keep saying you abandoned them, but everyone knows you were the one holding things together. They're embarrassed, Marissa. People finally see it." For years, I'd been invisible. Now, ironically, my absence made me unforgettable. At work, promotions were opening. I threw myself into applications, interviews, projects that once had been impossible, while I drained myself covering their bills. Without their weight, I soared. And when the offer letter came, double my old salary, I realized I had built a future stronger than any approval they could have given me. Meanwhile, the voicemails shifted again. My brother's voice was hoarse. "You ruined us, Marissa. You'll regret this when you're all alone." But I wasn't alone. My apartment was filled with friends, laughter, coworkers who celebrated me without conditions. The loneliness had never been mine. It had been theirs, disguised by the noise of control. That Sunday, I walked past their house on my way downtown. The curtains were drawn, the lawn unkempt, the mailbox stuffed with envelopes stamped overdue. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I simply walked past, the sound of my heels on the pavement louder than their silence. They had called me a freeloader. Now they lived in the shadow of their own words, dependent on the people they once mocked. And I carried nothing of theirs anymore. The freedom was intoxicating. To be continued. Spring came, and with it, a clarity I'd never known. While my family scrambled in the ruins of their own making, I stood taller, steady, free. My light stayed on, my bills were paid, my fridge full because I filled it. No begging, no guilt, no backhanded freeloader labels. Just me, building the life they swore I couldn't. On Easter Sunday, a final voicemail arrived. Mom's voice was hollow, nothing like the sharp tone she once wielded. "Marissa, we don't know how to fix this. We thought we were teaching you toughness, but maybe we were just cruel. We lost you, and maybe we deserve this." For a moment, I closed my eyes, letting her words hang in the air. I thought of every night I lay awake wondering why I was never enough. Every Christmas where laughter echoed while I swallowed tears. Every time they made me feel like I was a burden, when all along I was the one carrying them. I didn't reply, because this wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about truth. And the truth was, their collapse was their own lesson, not mine to fix. That evening, I sat on my balcony, city lights sparkling below, friends' voices still echoing in my living room. A glass of wine in hand, I raised it silently to the night. To boundaries, I whispered. To freedom. The sweetest justice wasn't in their downfall. It was in my peace, the life I finally claimed, the silence I no longer feared, the family I chose instead of the one that broke me. They had called me a freeloader. But in the end, I was the one who walked away with everything.